really fun.
So di situ ada co-hostnya, jadi dia nggak sendirian ya. So you there too?
I was helping from behind the scenes. So Robert took the show away, and he was the host of the show, and I was there behind the scenes, being the proud sister.
She was absolutely incredible.
So this show is about you.
Well, the show is basically all about biomimicry. So biomimicry is basically how some of the coolest things that have actually evolved in nature have inspired some inventions in our man-made world. So it's a really, really cool kind of concept, and it's such a fun show. We've got a lot of really cool experiments going on in there, and I think
jadi tentang biomimicry. Biomimicry itu adalah jadi meniru lingkungan dan membuat itu menjadi sesuatu gitu. Jadi dan itu dipakai dengan teknologi-teknologi yang ada sekarang. Oke. Give me an example about biomimicry that we use now.
Well, there's a lot of really cool examples.
Yes.
One of my favorite is how, termites, those little tiny little insects, build those massive termite mounds to live in. Well, the way that they can actually construct those termite mounds have inspired the way we build high-rise buildings, and how, we actually allow airflow in those buildings to control the temperature. Or how kangaroos, and how they can jump so far.
Yes.
Well, they actually store and recycle kinetic energy in their legs to jump so far. And that has actually inspired off-road vehicles. So it's really, really cool,
Oh, jadi contohnya kayak itu ada binatang kecil yang kalau bikin rumahnya itu bisa jadi besar ya karena ngumpulin dan banyak lubang udaranya. Nah, itu yang menginspirasikan kita untuk membangun gedung tinggi dengan teknologi yang diambil dari binatang tersebut. Sama seperti kanguru yang bisa lompat dengan kekuatan kinetik yang ada di kakinya, itu yang kita ambil buat membuat sebuah kendaraan juga. Jadi kita mengambil kemampuan-kemampuan hewan dan lingkungan kita untuk menjadikan teknologi yang kita pakai sekarang. Okay. And not only that, of course, it's about how you preserve the nature, right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's all about how we have learned so much from nature. And it's really, really cool because it was entirely actually filmed in Australia. So we've got some really awesome Australian wildlife, and we've shot all around Australia, not only in my home at Australia Zoo, but we went all the way down south to Melbourne and right up.
You're gonna come to Indonesia too for shooting?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, season 2 will be definitely shot in Indonesia.
Robert, you're talking about nature. How old are you again?
I'm 10 years old.
You're 10 years old, okay. But what if another 10 years old kid that do not live in the middle of the zoo?
Yeah.
What can they do to preserve
Yeah,
nature?
definitely.
Yeah,
well,
what can they do?
Wherever you are in the world, whether you live here in Indonesia or in the outback of Australia, each and every person can definitely make a difference.
Even little kids?
Even little kids and, people who are 100 years old who live in a high-rise apartment in Hong Kong. There's so many different things you can do.
Give me an example.
Yeah, well, you can plant a tree in your local park. Or even if you turn off the tap while you're brushing your teeth. Those little tiny things can all make a really big difference and certainly help the world and create positive change. Yeah, definitely.
Jadi siapapun tuh bisa membantu kita untuk melestarikan lingkungan kita. Siapapun Anda, dari anak kecil sampai orang udah umur 100 tahun yang tinggal di rumah susun bisa. Ngerti loh ya?
Ya ngerti kalau bahasa Indonesia apa?
Oh iya, gua
kalau tadi Inggris saya nggak ngerti.
Invite? Ya, invite.
Oke, kita invite aja ibunya Terry Irwin.
Hah?
Terry Irwin masuk.
That's our mom.
Oh, your mom! Oh, your mom! Hi, Terry, how are you?
Very good.
Oke, silakan ditanya.
Aduh, Pak.
Tinggal dibaca tuh.
Saya mules, Pak, udah nanya.
Tinggal baca.
What do you think of Indonesia, its food and wildlife?
See, I heard that our ranger did not speak English, but obviously that's not correct. Because that was amazing. That was very good English.
Very good English. All right, thank you.
I have to say, I absolutely love Indonesia.
You love Indonesia.
And when Bindi and Robert got to come to Indonesia, they loved everything. The rambutans, the wildlife, the people, the most beautiful people here in Indonesia. So we very much treasured our time.
I also heard, she told me that Steve was living here for a couple of years before.
Yeah, I think he spent probably 18 months or so here and did a lot of surfing. And some of the best wildlife is where there's the best surfing. So it's a wonderful combination. And he really grew to love the country and brought us back many times to see the markets, to experience how beautiful it is. And now at Australia Zoo, we have Sumatran tigers from Indonesia, and it is the first time in more than 30 years that someone has been allowed to have tigers from Indonesia. So we were so honored to be able to help.
Nah, ini jadi pertama Steve tuh pernah di sini selama hampir 2 tahun dan baru sekarang ini ada macan Sumatera yang dibawa ke Australia untuk di kebun binatang Australia. Baru sekarang ini setelah 30 tahun diusahakan tapi tidak pernah bisa, baru sekarang ini. Yang jadi masalah adalah kita tahu sendiri bahwa di Indonesia sendiri itu sulit banget untuk dilindungi gitu loh. Bahkan ada kebun binatang yang sampai binatangnya mati semua. Betul. Karena nggak dikasih makan dan nggak dipelihara dengan baik ya.
Kandangnya kotor sekali.
Kandangnya kotor sekali.
Nggak diurus lah Pak.
Sebagainya. Ya, tapi itu salah siapa gitu? Karena mungkin juga gimana ya? Mungkin juga kalau yang ngurus perutnya masih lapar juga ngurusin binatang juga malas sekali kan? Betul. Ya kan itu kan.
Sick in here kata macan.
Apa?
Sick in here.
Apa sick in?
Sakitnya tuh di sini.
Do you know that? I think a couple of months ago, they're in the news about Indonesians zoo. One of them, I think in Surabaya, maybe they don't really care about the animals. Some of them die there. Have you ever heard about that?
Yes, and we've spent time with zoos around the world encouraging putting the animals' welfare first. And sometimes there's a tendency to take care of a zoo's guests and not the wildlife, but the wildlife must always come first. And if it doesn't, then it's our place to help teach zoos how to do that. So at Australia Zoo, the animals come first, then our staff, then our visitors. And when visitors come to a zoo and they see happy staff and beautiful animals, then they come first. So that's what's so important. And I think sometimes it's money or it's the wrong priority. So we're working with many places to try to help.
Yeah, I think there's some of the problems. I mean, so I told him that maybe they don't really care about the animals because the company doesn't really care about them. You know, that can happen, right?
And there are places like the Taman Safari Park where the people really love the animals and do projects in the wild. It's so important too, not just to have a zoo, but also to be doing things for animals in the wild. And at Australia Zoo, we have a wildlife hospital, endangered species breeding programs, and projects right here in Indonesia.
So you've been in the Taman Safari?
Oh yes, we are good friends with Tony. We do conservation projects together, and it's very special.
Baik, jadi tadi yang dikatakan bahwa kalau di luar sana yang dipikirkan harus kebahagiaan binatang-binatangnya dulu, baru karyawan-karyawan yang ada di kebun binatang, baru pengunjung. Karena kalau pengunjungnya datang melihat karyawannya bahagia, pengunjungnya jadi bahagia, akhirnya pengunjungnya jadi nomor 1 juga gitu. Jadi muter terus sebenarnya, jadi muter terus. Okay, so these are classic questions, but I need to ask you. So we all know what happens to Steve, right? So you're not afraid when Robert now basically taking his job?
I think it is so important to remember that what happened to Steve was an accident. It wasn't the animal's fault, and that all of us have opportunity for accidents in our lives. And what we do, whether we drive a car or work with wildlife, whatever our passion is, you take consolidated risk. If you take no risk, you really don't live. So it's very important to live life to its fullest. Have adventures, be brave, be strong, don't be afraid. And sometimes that's hard to do. But if you love your children, you'll let them do things. You'll encourage them.
And is that what they really want to do?
You know what's interesting? Here's what's interesting. They do things I can't do. Robert, downhill mountain bikes, Bindi skydives. I can't do any of that.
But we are so lucky because with whatever we take up, Mum is always there to support us. And you know, I'm so lucky. I definitely have the best family in the world. They're absolutely incredible.
That's great. That's great. Menarik ya kata-katanya ya. Jadi mengatakan bahwa kejadian di Steve Irwin itu adalah sebuah kecelakaan. Dan kalau bicara kecelakaan, semua orang bisa mengalami kecelakaan. Di jalan pun bisa mengalami kecelakaan. Tapi kalau kita tidak mengambil resiko dalam hidup kita nggak pernah hidup. Jadi makanya di sini Terry membiarkan anak-anaknya untuk mengambil apa yang mereka mau, apa yang mereka suka, walaupun dengan pelajaran yang sudah pernah terjadi. Tapi itu nggak menjadi sebuah halangan karena, well, that's a life. I mean, itu yang mereka lakukan di hidup mereka, their patience. Dan begitulah cara menjalani passion. Pasti ada resikonya apapun itu. Nah, setelah ini saya punya satu bintang tamu lagi nih. Dari luar juga, dari Amerika juga kalau nggak salah. Asalnya Amerika, tapi dia adalah penyanyi Muslim. Penyanyi Muslim asal Amerika. Setelah saat ini jangan mana-mana, tetap di Hitam Putih.